Do you even know where you just stepped, Senior Chief Logan? Iron Maddox asked, his tone sharpened with mockery and a cold smile as he watched a woman in civilian clothes set foot on the Pacific Trident Training Complex. The SEAL's most restricted range. This area is for qualified operators only. 13 SEALs paused their prep, rifles half-assembled, and laughed as she walked toward the legendary firing line, but none of them realized that in just 8 minutes, she would challenge the 350-meter record that had stood untouched for a decade. Aria Phantom Kessler didn't look like she belonged no uniform. No trident on her chest. Yes, she had clearance under the Inter-Service Exchange Program, but the SEALs assumed it meant tours and briefings, not walking up to the firing line. This zone is for qualified shooters only. Maddox pressed, 15 years of authority in his voice. His men chuckled, certain she'd retreat. Before we dive in, hit subscribe for more untold military stories, and drop a comment with where you're watching from. We love to see how far these stories travel. Aria gave no answer. Instead, her eyes swept the set-up benches and steel rests, wind monitors humming quietly, and at the far wall, the board of legends. Every name carried weight. But one line towered above the rest, the iron shot, 350 meters. Maddox, 10 years unbroken. Gift shops back at the main building, Petty Officer Riley Stone teased, slapping the side of his Barrett. You'll want souvenirs, not bruises. Careful. Gunnery Sergeant Cole Havoc Ramirez added with a grin. These rifles don't like tourists, kick harder than mules. Aria stepped closer, her calm presence cutting sharper than words. She studied the wind flags, the shimmer of mirage over the berm, the pulse of shifting air. Subtle errors, that's why 13 attempts had failed. The first shooter called ready, fired, and missed low. Another came close, 6 inches right. Thunder rolled, dust plumed, but no steel rang true. 13 elite shooters, 13 near-perfect misses. Maddox crossed his arms, watching the smoke drift. That's why this record stands. Weather, weapon, shooter, and a little luck. Laughter returned, thin and satisfied. Then Aria moved. She rested her hand on the cold steel of an unused Barrett like it was something she'd carried before. Stone blinked. Hold up, what are you doing, Phantom? Maddox warned, the nickname escaping before he realized it. That system requires a full safety brief. She checked the chamber with practiced ease, eyes never leaving the distant plate. I'm briefed. The range fell silent, the kind of silence that comes when men realize the joke might not be a joke at all. Finally, Aria spoke, her voice low but steady. Mind if I try the record? Maddox stared, torn between regulation and the gnawing weight of curiosity. No outsider had ever asked. No outsider had ever dared. Would they really let her touch the iron shot, let alone attempt to break it? The range smelled of powder and pride. 13 elite shooters had tried that morning. 13 misses. The iron shot still stood at 350 meters. Untouchable. And now the visitor wanted a turn. Ma'am, this is a .50 caliber system, Riley Stone said, trying to sound patient but failing, not beginner-friendly. Cole Havoc Ramirez chuckled. Recoil alone could break a shoulder if you don't know what you're doing. Aria didn't bother replying. She lifted the Barrett as if it weighed half its 35 pounds, checked the chamber with crisp precision, and dialed the scope like she'd been running this glass for years. One of the younger SEALs muttered under his breath, "Holy hell, she knows what she's doing." Maddox took a cautious step forward, instincts warring between safety protocol and the undeniable fact in front of him. "Captain, Have you fired this system before? Aria's cheek settled into the stock. That single word carried the kind of weight only earned by repetition in places that never make the news. Which target? Maddox asked, though he already knew. The record. Silence stretched across the line. Even the wind flag seemed to wait. She slowed her breathing, eye steady through the scope. Her left thumb tapped once against the stock, syncing with the pulse of mirage dancing above the berm. She'd watched every SEAL shoot, logged every mistake, and built the correction in her head long before she touched the trigger. "Shooter ready," Aria said. The Barrett roared. The recoil rocked her shoulder, but she absorbed it clean, rolling back into the cradle without a flinch. Through glass. Stone froze. Dust cloud erupted at the target bank. Then his voice cracked the silence. Impact confirmed. Record equaled. Dead center zone. The firing line erupted, not cheers, not yet, but a stunned intake of breath. Maddox's mouth tightened, half shock, half reluctant respect. Havoc swore under his breath. Stone's hands shook on the spotting scope. The iron shot wasn't iron anymore. It was just another line someone brave enough had crossed. Maddox lowered his arms slowly. "Captain Kessler, what's your actual specialty?" Aria safed the rifle, laid it down gently, and turned, counter-sniper, 75th Ranger Regiment, before anyone could speak. Alarms ripped the base apart. Sirens screamed across the compound, red lights strobing against concrete. The gate slammed open and Commander Natalie Cross strode in. Tablet clutched to her chest, voice carrying urgency like a weapon. "All SEAL personnel, immediate deploy, hostages in hostile territory." The atmosphere flipped from competition to combat in a single breath. SEALs snapped to attention, weapons stripped from benches, gear buckled fast. Maddox shifted from instructor to mission commander without hesitation. "Situation," he demanded. Cross spread a satellite image across the screen. The northern Kashmir Valley. Compound ringed with ridges. 14 humanitarian medics captured. 9 sniper overwatch positions confirmed. If we go in standard, we bleed before we breach. Aria stepped forward. Calm, cutting through the noise. "Commander, I'm your designated counter-sniper. Ranger Regiment sent me for this operation." Cross checked her tablet, eyes narrowing, then nodded. "Confirmed. You're on overwatch." Stone stared at her, respect dawning in the same eyes that had mocked her that morning. "You're here for Kashmir?" "Correct," Aria answered, already adjusting dope in her mind. 9 snipers in elevation. They die first, or nobody makes it out alive. Maddox studied her like a man recalibrating the world. "Captain, how do you plan to hit 9 rifles hidden across a valley in the dark?" Aria rested her hand on the Barrett, still warm from the record shot. "The same way I just did." "Chief." She paused, then added, "Only this time. The targets will shoot back, within hours. Helicopters would lift into the black, carrying men who no longer saw her as a tourist, but as the difference between success and disaster." Rotors churned the night air as 2 MH-47G Chinooks and a pair of stealth Blackhawks carved low through the Kashmir Valley, inside Chalk 1. Captain Aria Kessler sat with the Barrett secured in a stabilized cradle, her night vision optics scanning ridgelines like she could see through the dark itself. 3 minutes to hold. The pilot called. "Quartering wind. 22 knots. Copy." Aria adjusted her dope card, noting how cold air funneled down the saddles. Twisting trajectories. Mirage at night was harder to read, but the rhythm was there for anyone patient enough to feel it. Commander Natalie Cross's voice cut across comms. 14 hostages confirmed. 9 enemy snipers on the high ground. Overwatch must be cold before assault. Maddox glanced over. Hours earlier, he had called her a tourist. Now, he simply asked, "You good?" Aria's cheek settled into the rest. "Good." Stone spotted the first thermal bloom. Ridge east, Dragunov profile. He's glassing the sky. They weren't yet in stack. If the sniper locked on the helicopters now, the assault would end before it began. Pilot. Hold this drift. 2 knots slower, Aria whispered, almost to herself. She timed the sniper's silhouette against a tower strut. 3 seconds. Crack. The ridge winked. Stone's voice carried steady impact confirmed. First hide down. They slid to the next. A shooter crouched on a low shelf, rifle aimed toward the landing zone. Aria dialed 0.5 mil into the cradle. Broke the trigger. Second overwatch neutralized. The third man guarded the compound courtyard, positioned to cut down hostages if rescue began. Aria exhaled once. Pressed. Third hide cold. Now the valley shifted. Crosswinds pinched. Shadows masked muzzle glints. The fourth sniper was repositioning, hunting the birds. Crack. Fourth target effective hit. Stone confirmed, relief hidden behind professionalism. Fifth was deep cover at the tree line, nearly invisible. Aria nudged her hold, trusted the feel, fired, rear exit watcher down. The sixth was a coordinator, whispering into a handset. He never finished the call. Coordinator neutralized. Then came the most dangerous a marksman stretched across the western spur, 400 meters, a line of sight over the entire valley. The Chinook shuddered under rotor wash. Pilot. Lock altitude. I need 0 vertical, riding a knife. The pilot warned. Aria didn't blink. Aria didn't. She read the flags, found the lull, and pressed. Stone tracked the impact. Confirmed. Lethal zone. Western spur neutralized. 2 more hides remained. One was a decoy lens. Cheap glass meant to trick drones. The other was real, hidden in dead ground. Aria cracked the decoy first, forcing the true sniper to flinch. Her follow-up came before he recovered. Both hides cleared. All overwatch cold. Cross's voice hit the net seal element's green light. Move. The helicopters dropped into the valley. Breach charges rolled like distant thunder. Shouts. Gunfire. Then silence. 14 hostages. Secure. Came the report. No friendly casualties. Maddox looked at Aria, headset hanging loose. His eyes held the weight of a truth he couldn't shake. The mission had lived or died on one woman's cadence. Aria reloaded calmly, eyes still scanning. Stay sharp. Valleys like this don't give you second chances. Back at Pacific Trident, the board still showed 1 to 350 meters. Maddox was already wondering if Aria might aim further at the ghost plate no one had ever touched. The coastline rose out of the dark, and the cabin finally breathed. No one said luck. They talked about lanes, timing, and rifles that never got to fire. 14 people were alive because one cadence beat the valley. Senior Chief Logan Iron Maddox braced a hand on a stanchion. What you did wasn't a party trick, he told Captain Aria Phantom Kessler over the rotor thrum. You turned a kill box into quiet. Riley Stone, the spotter who'd cracked jokes that morning, lifted his headset. Range shot impressed me, he admitted. But from a moving bird, multiple impact confirmed. Lethal zone calls. Where'd you learn that read? Aria wiped the Barrett like a ritual. Ranger Regiment counter-sniper. Mountains, helicopters, bad air. You train until the math becomes reflex and the reflex becomes calm. They rolled into the Pacific Trident training complex and went straight to debrief. Commander Natalie Cross faced a wall of green satellite stills that told the story clean. 9 overwatch hides neutralized, hostages home, no friendly losses, she said. The decisive factor was precision overwatch airborne, timed and disciplined. The room didn't applaud. It recalibrated. Heads bowed over shot traces. Senior operators took notes instead of positions. The men who'd watched through glass now watched Aria like a new manual being written. Maddox stood. 12 hours earlier, he'd guarded tradition. Now he guarded a doorway. Captain Kessler, your environmental parsing, rotor wash compensation, and cadence timing belong in our pipeline. Will you train our SEAL precision overwatch cadre? Aria glanced at Cross, received a single nod. Different branches, same mission. She said, yes. Stone stepped forward. Plain spoken. I called you a tourist. I was wrong. If there's a class, I want the first seat. First seat gets corrected first, Aria said. Aria. The line got a quiet ripple. The tension left the room. Maddox led a small group down the corridor to the Hall of Legends, brushed steel. Distances like mile markers. He uncapped a pen beneath the decade-old entry that read, Iron Shot Maddox 1, 350 meters, and added record equaled Captain Aria, Kessler 1, 350 met combat proven overwatch. He capped the pen. Then noticed Aria's gaze slide past the names. Out through the glass toward the far berm, a white plate, sun-faded and barely visible, winked in the distance like a dare no one had taken seriously, 600 meters. The ghost target. That's beyond our published envelope, Maddox said. Not dismissive, careful. Mirage eats you alive that far, even with this glass. Cross folded her arms, the risk calculus running quiet behind her eyes. If we touch it, we do it by the book. Safety, wind study, no crowd. Aria rested a hand on the Barrett's receiver, the way pianists touch ivory before a hard piece. Set the line. If the air gives us a beat, I'll take it. Maddox looked from the distant plate to the empty space on steel that had never known ink. A door opened in his voice. Then we'll write the line after. At dusk. The range would stop being a museum and try to become a first edition. They kept it clean, flags re-spooled, tripods re-leveled, the ballistic station humming like a conscience. No audience, just Cross, Maddox, Stone on glass, and a few shooters who knew failure would be a footnote and success a chapter. The ghost plate at 600 meters barely counted as a shape. Two winds argued lazy aloft, sharp on the deck. Mirage braided the air. Late light told the lie that makes targets look closer. Target faint but readable, Stone said, welded to the scope. Call is yours. Aria built the position like a house, bipod planted, rear bag breathing with her, not against her. Elevation dialed, wind holds staged. She ran the numbers, then left a sliver for feel the art that lives between flags 4 and 5. 2-4 wind, value 3-8. She murmured, add a 10th for the bowl, shave a hair for the lull, slight thermal lift hold a whisper high. No one spoke. Maddox had learned not to talk inside another professional's ritual. Cross watched the flags. Not the shooter. Outcomes belonged to processes. Aria waited not for silence, for the right kind of noise. A gull split the sky and banked. The Mirage flattened on cadence. The same invisible beat she'd trusted in a valley far away. She pressed. The Barrett's report slammed the berm and returned as civilized thunder. Stone tracked the trace through wobble and heat and wind that wanted a say in history. He didn't answer right away. Then, steady impact confirmed. Plate fractured. New range record. No one cheered. Maddox closed his eyes for a breath. Reopened them lighter. Cross exhaled a quiet laugh, the kind officers allow when the improbable obeys instructions. Aria cleared and safed the rifle before she looked up. Stone was grinning now. A convert. You just left a fingerprint on air. They walked to the Hall of Legends while the light went warm on steel. Maddox uncapped the pen and wrote in a hand that didn't shake. Record surpassed capped a Kessler 1, 600 mem ghost shot. He handed her the pen. Anything to add? Aria shook her head. Records are a group sport. The changes came quiet and fast. Pacific Trident added odd angle plates, staggered wind poles, a module called Overwatch under rotor wash. The syllabus gained Phantom's cadence, read at 2 distances, commit at 1. Break on the beat the air gives you. That night, Cross found Aria alone on the line. She offered a tablet grainy video. 14 faces in a hospital conference room. A nurse with a bandage at her hairline said the smallest heavy words. Thank you. We got to go home because someone we'll never meet did their job perfectly. Aria just nodded. The way you nod to gravity. Sometimes the visitor you dismiss rewrites doctrine. Sometimes the tourist becomes the page everyone trains from. And sometimes the truest precision isn't measured in meters or mils, but in birthdays kept, anniversaries reached, and the quiet lives that go on because, at the exact second it mattered, someone listened to the wind and answered.